World War I changed Russia forever. It deposed the Tsar, created the USSR, and altered the fate of millions and millions of Russian lives. Without World War I, Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin, and perhaps even Castro would never have risen to power, and their names would carry none of the weight that they do today. Russia's ultimate failure in World War I changed the course of Russia and the world forever. In this video, we will examine how exactly that happened.
Russia entered the war more because of necessity than desire. Tsar Nicholas II detailed this in his letter to Wilhelm, the Kaiser of Germany. The Russian populace, outraged at Austria-Hungary's attack on Serbia and desperate for a return to greatness after being demolished in the Russo-Japanese War, demanded that the Tsar attack Austria-Hungary. The Tsar had no choice but to mobilize the First and Second Russian armies to attack Germany and Austria, and so with that, World War I began.
Russia's initial plan was a quick, strong offensive that would destroy the German army on the Eastern Front. The German plan was the opposite, defending their Eastern Front until their offensive in France had demolished the French, and then send their troops to the Eastern Front. Russia sent their First and Second Armies directly into Prussia, meeting the German 8th Army at Tannesburg on August 23rd. The Russians severely outnumbered the Germans, but they underestimated the German tactical leadership and plunged forward with no regret for their flanks. The Germans flanked them and inflicted heavy casualties in the area of 170,000, while only taking 12,000 themselves. The Russian First Army fled, and the Russian Second Army was entirely demolished. Dude, what do I press?
I've got to kind of in the outtakes. The next major battle of the war was the Battle of the Masurian Lakes in September of 1914. Here, the Russian general Rennenkampf ordered the remains of the Russian Second Army and the Russian First Army to regroup and hold their position. After receiving even more reinforcements, the Russians once again felt comfortable in their numbers and certain of victory. Unfortunately for the Russians, the same tactic again prevailed for the Germans, as they used a nearly continual supply of reinforcements to flank the Russian army and drive them out of Germany entirely, inflicting heavy casualties.
Up until early 1917, Russia had fought a mainly defensive, losing war with Germany. The Russian citizens, angry about the losing war, food shortages, the autocratic government, and other factors decided to revolt. The Tsar was forced to abdicate the throne, and the new provisional government, led by Alexander Kerensky, took over. However, they decided to stay in the war, a decision that would later come to haunt them. They promised a convincing Russian victory and began planning on how to accomplish it.
The plan they came up with was the Brusilov offensive. It is generally regarded as Russia's greatest tactical success, though the Russian populace looked at it as a major failure due to the massive amount of Russian casualties. Alexei Brusilov was the only commander at the time that advised an offensive, so naturally he was the one who led it. His plan was to launch a massive surprise attack along the Austria-Hungarian border, and it was initially a fantastic success. However, a combination of lack of communication and fast transport and German reinforcements for the Austrians led to the ultimate defeat of the offensive. The Russians lost 500,000 men, and the Russian citizens were not happy at all.
The next turning point in the war was the Bolshevik Revolution. The provisional government failed to address any of the problems that caused the March-February Revolution in the first place, and Lenin's slogan of peace, land, bread directly targeted that, with peace at the forefront. The citizens were tired of war, and the provisional government fell to the Bolsheviks as a result, with Lenin at the head. Lenin's first move was to declare an armistice with Germany on December 15, 1917. The Bolsheviks then negotiated the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which was signed on March 13, 1918.
The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was a total embarrassment for the Russians. The Bolsheviks needed to sign it as soon as possible, so they agreed to nearly anything proposed, giving away a quarter of their population, 3/4 of their industry, 90% of their coal mines, and $6 million in compensation to the Germans.
The Russians lost World War I for a series of reasons. One could point to their tactical disadvantages, their inability to communicate, their lack of transportation systems, or even their lack of equipment for their soldiers. In almost every way but total manpower, the Russians were inferior to the Germans. The massive amount of casualties that Russia took in every part of the war was directly linked to each of these failures.
World War I had a huge effect on Russia. At its beginning, Russia was controlled by a czar, and by the end it had a communist government. Its leaders changed twice, there were multiple rebellions, and its borders were entirely different by the end of the war. The country had suffered massive losses, both to economy and population, and was incredibly divided along issues such as the governmental system and policies on food and land reform. World War I set the stage for Russia's domestic and foreign interactions with the rest of the world throughout the 20th century and even to today, bringing it into the new era of the world.